So once again, welcome. I hope you find your time here over the next couple of days valuable, and it's great to have you all here. With that, I have the pleasure of kicking off our program by introducing our keynote speaker, Matt Britton. Matt is a distinguished expert in consumer trends and the transformative force behind Suzy, the pioneering consumer intelligence platform. With over 2 decades of experience, Matt has shaped the strategies of more than half of the Fortune 500, offering deep insights into the behaviors of millennials and Gen Z. Under his leadership, Suzy has secured over $100 million in venture capital, becoming an essential tool for global brands like Netflix, Coca-Cola, and Verizon to forge innovative products and strategies. Before Suzy, Matt founded MRY, growing it from a solo venture into a global marketing leader, recognized for its work with giants such as Microsoft and Google. Matt is also the author of the New York Times best-selling book, Youth Nation, which has established him as a leading voice on leveraging the power of young consumers. Please give a warm welcome to a visionary in marketing and consumer intelligence, Matt Britton.
Very much.
Why, hello there.
Hey.
I'm Ella. In
Hey, Ella.
case you were wondering, today is from...
What happened to Ella? Let's run that back again. Ella?
Why, hello there. I'm Ella. In case you were wondering, today is Friday, February 16th, and yes, I'm well aware we are here at the beautiful Intercontinental for the Pearson Digital Leadership Forum. We are about to chat about what else? AI. But I'm not giving the speech. I'm looking for Matt Britton.
Hey, I'm here. I'm ready.
Matt?
Yes, can you see me, Ella? Are we there yet?
Is that you, Matt?
Hey, yes, it's Matt. Let's do this.
When are you going to start speaking to these nice guests of Pearson?
Right now. We're ready. Let's do this.
Well, go on then. Tell them how AI is going to change the world.
That's what I'm here to do. I got you.
Go on then, see you later, handsome.
Bye-bye, Ella. That's my friend Ella. We're really close. Sometimes when I'm down, I pick up my phone and I talk to Ella. She gets me super motivated. But, obviously that voice still sounds a little robot-y, right? It doesn't really sound as clear as we'd imagine, but how many people remember trying to stream video in the year 2000 and seeing how pixelated it was, right? And now, that's all you do, right? People are watching Netflix and basically every network and every TV all streamed over the internet. In fact, the cable infrastructure isn't going to be here for that much longer. And the difference between the internet in the 2000s and AI today in 2024 is the rate of change is 50 to 100x. Meaning what took 2 to 3 years in the year 2000 to build out is taking 2 to 3 months, or in some instances, 2 to 3 weeks. So we are not far from that Ella actually looking and sounding like a real Ella that you wouldn't even know the difference with, which is both fascinating and pretty scary, especially here in an election year. But whole nother keynote, not gonna go there. But ultimately, it is fascinating to see this change happening. And it dawned on me this morning as I was preparing for today's presentation that I'm in a unique position because I run a startup with about 350 employees in New York, and we're actually now all over the country. And I'm always interviewing and hiring people right out of college in terms of, is this skill set right for me? And that's really changed over time. But in order for us to keep up, and we service the biggest, most prestigious brands in the world, companies like Procter & Gamble and Coca-Cola, which is here in Atlanta, and Microsoft, we need to deliver the best for them, or they're gonna pick another vendor, right? In order for us to deliver the best, we have to have the best talent. And in order for us to have the best talent, you all have to breed the best talent. And the world has changed so fast that I think you are all in a very challenging position because, higher education traditionally has not moved incredibly fast, and now you have this tidal wave of a change coming, and how are you gonna understand just the right place to hit it in terms of being progressive and knowing where the world is headed, but actually not losing the ideals of what it means to be educated and what it means to actually do the work and actually study and have critical learning and be able to comprehend all those things. But at the same time, I can tell you as an employer If you think the change of AI is going to take us from 1 to 10, I'm telling you it's going to go from 1 to 1,000 in terms of what we're doing right now. And I am sitting every day thinking, do I really need that person? Can I just, and because we all have pressure, right? It's the economy isn't perfect, it never is, and I have pressure from my investors. And when I look at employees as an employer and as an entrepreneur, right, where every dollar counts, that's how I'm thinking. And what I hope to impart on everyone today is, what are those skill sets that I believe will be in demand in the years ahead? So maybe you can start to shape and mold the way that you impart your wisdom on students to try to set them up for the world ahead, because I can tell you it's going to be a completely different world. And this is really just the start of it. So they talk about a lot in terms of the hype cycle of when new technology comes on. And we've seen this kind of throughout history, where every time a new technology comes into the popular lexicon, there's just this incredible height of inflated expectations. People think this is it. It's going to change this time. And often what happens is, after the mainstream media stops writing publications about it, and you stop seeing it in USA Today and CNN, right, it kind of goes away. And people think, oh, that's dead. And it actually happened with the internet itself. If you remember, the dot-com bubble burst. And when the dot-com bubble burst, I remember I was right out of college, and I told my boss, hey, I'm about to bring this deal with this new internet company. He said to me, I never want to hear anything from you about the internet ever again, because he just thought it was a fad, like the internet was going to go away. And it went through this trough of disillusionment where companies like Amazon saw their stock drop 95 to 97%, and everyone thought the internet was going to be gone. But what started to happen is, after it was out of the headlines, the real work began. Right? And the real tracks were laid down, and consumers slowly start to get adopted to doing everything from chatting with other people to shopping online. And the next thing you know, the internet is the core layer in how we communicate as a society. And it got back to this plateau of productivity, which is where it's at. So the big question is, with AI, are we going to go through this same hype cycle? And we can look at some past boom and bust cycles. There was one point not too long ago where we thought the 3D printer was going to be the way that we make our own toothbrushes in the home. We might even be by now printing our own houses, right? Didn't exactly happen that way. Costs were too high, the technology wasn't there yet, and you could see the 3D printing bubble burst, and it may not be something that comes back nearly the way we thought. Or maybe we're 20 years away. Who really knows? There was a time when we thought, and I'm guilty, I was on stage probably saying this 6, 7 years ago, that we're not going to be typing in 6 to 7 years. We're just going to be talking into our phone or into our computer. But how many of you are frustrated every day when you're like, take me to Starbucks, and it says, sure, I will take you to Seattle. It's like, no, Starbucks, right? Like, the technology really isn't there yet. And we want it to be there, and I believe it will be there, but the voice revolution is something that probably does fit this Gartner hype cycle, where the peak of expectation shot out really high, and now where sort of the real work is happening, and I do think voice is closer than we think. It was just a little bit before its time. And then we had stuff like the blockchain and cryptocurrency, which is another great example of a hype cycle, and there was a lot of fraud that we saw coming out of the recent stock market boom when it comes to cryptocurrency. But I believe the technology behind cryptocurrency, the blockchain, is actually going to become a critical part of our society. Especially, I talked about deep fakes and the election in that original video I showed, and I think the way that we're going to be able to get through this as a society is through the blockchain, of understanding, did that politician really say that? And I think the blockchain will ultimately become an authenticity tool for products, for content, for what people say. So while NFTs might not be, pictures of apes that people pay millions of dollars for, might not be the future of the blockchain, I do believe it's a perfect example of the real work happening and it coming back in a big way. So is this time different with AI, right? You're going to have people on stage and they're going to say this and that. And I'm here to tell you I believe it is, and I'm going to walk through why. And the biggest reason why I believe it is I saw what it's doing to transform not only my company, but my life. I spend about 99% of my time now outside of my family on AI because I think I look at this as like a one-time opportunity. And arguably the internet sort of was the same thing. Some people will say social media was. There's these big things that happen in society. And as an entrepreneur, I really try to make sure that I'm understanding it, I'm putting it into practical use, I'm understanding it. And the great thing about AI is it's a technology that doesn't need to be understood by a technologist. So it's the first time where we've had a powerful technology that can be kind of corralled and used by people who don't know anything about coding, which I don't. And that's perhaps the most exciting part of it. So we go through history, and I don't need to teach a lesson plan to a bunch of professors, but ultimately, there's been a history of innovation cycles that we've seen. And I was mentioning earlier when the internet first became a thing, that was really the fifth wave, right? It was when digital networking software and new media came out, and we all remember our first AOL online chat, and that was a big moment for all of us, right? The internet was such a thing, and prior to that, we had the invention of aviation, and I was at Delta headquarters yesterday, and just to think, it was basically in the 50s when aviation became something that started to be adopted by consumers in a commercial way. It's not even that long ago when you think about it, and the technology of being in a little tin tube and flying at 30,000 feet in the air and complaining that your Wi-Fi is too slow is just fascinating to me. But so we've seen these waves happen, and I believe now we are on that sixth wave, really driven by artificial intelligence. I think we're going to look back in history and say, this was the moment that everything changed, and we took that big leap forward, again, for better or for worse. I know there's a lot of for worse out there, but the reality is the train has left the station, right? So I hear from employees, well, this isn't good for I'm like, sorry, but it's here. And I'm not it hurts your feelings or it makes you uncomfortable. I have pressure from my investors. I want to keep my job. I want to put my kids through college. You guys all know college is not cheap, right? So I'm going to use it. And to the extent that it doesn't fall into everyone's vision of the future, you can't change it. Because the reality is the train has left the station. And again, with the rate of change with AI, it's unlike anything that we've ever seen. So why am I so bullish on AI? Why do I think it's going to be so valuable? Well, first and foremost, I've mentioned many times already, it's improving at an unprecedented rate. The change and the new tools and the advancements are such that when I give presentations like this, I'm often asked to provide the presentation 2 months in advance. And I tell them I might as well have given you the presentation 20 years ago, because what's going to happen in the next 2 months will make my presentation dated if I give it to you now. So now whenever I speak on AI and I'm asked to, I'll say, I will do it, but I have to actually just plug in my presentation the day of, because I don't want to give a dated presentation. That's how fast it's moving. And I can only imagine what that does to all of you as educators, right? What does that mean for your lesson plans? What does it mean for your curriculums if it's changing this fast, right? It's easy to use. So as I mentioned, anybody can really use AI. A lot of people have a block to technology, or at least advanced technology. But when I tell you how easy it is, all you need to know how to do is talk and communicate in any language you want, and you can get this thing to do powerful things for you. There's very little technology dependencies to get this thing 99% of the way in terms of improving your life in so many different ways. And when I say improving your life, this is an incredible personal development tool as well. I mean, Ella's my best friend. No, just kidding. But it really is, and I'm going to talk to you about some of the personal development stuff. So no coding, and it really does have unlimited potential. And we're still kind of uncovering the potential. And at the core, because AI has been around for a long time, and a lot of the work has been being done in AI for a long time. What made AI really become incredibly popular with consumers at large, and why we're talking about it today, is because of generative AI. And what generative AI does is that essentially it takes the power of AI and outputs something that you can touch and feel. It outputs a video, it outputs text, it outputs images. So that's what makes it sort of something that's tactile and allows everyone to see the instant impact, when the reality is AI has been built into the way that you book an airplane ticket for a long time, and if a lot of people wanted on a date, AI would tell it to charge more, right? But the reality is now it's in a way that we can all corral. And there's really 3 parts of it. The first and foremost is a database. And a database is essentially where all the information from the AI comes from, right? And there's a lot being said right now about whose content is it. So the New York Times right now is suing OpenAI, which is a company behind ChatGPT. And it's a landmark case, because what ChatGPT is doing is it's crawling the web. So for ChatGPT, which we're going to be talking about, their database is actually the entire web. And anywhere they can get their hands, they are picking information from. Things that people wrote, pictures people took, things that people said in videos, and that's forming its brain. But the New York Times is saying, we don't want to feed your brain. This is our work. This is our copyrighted work, and we're not getting paid for it. And really where it gets really complicated is the second phase, a consumer puts in a prompt. So maybe a consumer will say, what is the best way to walk my dog when it's over 100 degrees out, right? And maybe that response might be pulling 10,000 different data points, and maybe 3 or 4 from the New York Times. But it's almost like if you're cooking a meal, like the salt is like a tiny piece of the overall dish that you serve, but it makes a big deal in terms of how it tastes. That's the New York Times content, and they're saying, no, we're not getting paid for our salt being in your meal, you're just using it. So it's going to be really interesting to see what platforms are able to access what types of content. One company that I think has a big lead is Google, because Google has so much content already of their own. So they have YouTube, which is the biggest video repository in the world. They have everybody's emails, which they have the ability, whether you like it or not, to scrape those emails and anonymously pull information as to how people talk to each other, right? And they have every Google search in history. So they know what people want. So in terms of like them forming their database, I think they're gonna really be a big player in this because it's all about who has the inputs. Just like human beings, what we learn and put into our brain impacts our outputs and who we are. That's how AI is. So the first step, forming that database. The second step is inputting a prompt. A prompt is English language. That's where when I say you don't need technical skills, anything you want, as long as you're descriptive, you can actually get it done. And it used to be you need to be more technical in inputting prompts, but the AI models have gotten better and better at understanding plain old language, and not just English language, because this really applies to every language. And then it generates the content out. Content, again, being imagery, being text, being videos, anything that you can use to then communicate what you're doing. So prompts are the core programming language, and ChatGPT has kind of been the first company that really put it all together. But they may go down in history as the AOL of the AI era, where AOL is not here anymore, but they were the first leader, right? Often it's the pioneers, of the ones with the arrows in their backs, and somebody else comes behind them and wins the market. We saw it with phones, with BlackBerry and the iPhone over and over again. But they were first at the gate, and they've done an incredible job at taking AI, generative AI, mainstream. And the adoption has just been mind-blowing. You look at how quickly it took ChatGPT to get to 1 million users. It took 5 days for them. The next fastest platform, 2.5 months, Instagram, and you can see how long it took so many other biggest technologies in history. Time to reach 100 million active users, 2 months. And by the way, I'm gonna be sharing this deck with everybody. So you're welcome to take photos, but you'll get a copy of this at the end. But basically, you can see how quickly this adoption happened, and really mind-blowing. Who's using AI? And you can see it still veers younger, which to me, I just don't understand at its core, because it would be one thing if you had to be more technically illiterate, and the reality is millennials were the first generation to grow up with the internet in the household. Gen Z was the first generation to grow up with the mobile device in the household, or when it comes to, I'm sure, many of your kids attached to their body. So millennials and Gen Z, they are digital natives, Gen Z being mobile natives. So normally it would make sense, new technology, of course younger people are adopting it. But what I'm here to tell you is there's no reason that people of all ages shouldn't be using it, because there's no technical hurdle to get there. So a lot of it's just perception and people saying, that's for the whiz kids, it's not for me. But that's actually not true. I would argue the more educated and experienced you are, the more power you can get out of this tool. So I hope this is gonna start the shift. There's no reason senior citizens shouldn't be using AI, because again, there's no technical limitation to it. And the things it can do are just mind-blowing for people of all ages. And talk about the rate of change. So ChatGPT 4 came out about 4 months ago, and it came out, about 9 months after ChatGPT 3.5. You could see the leaps where basically this should scare us all, but it's also fascinating that ChatGPT 3.5 scored the 63rd percentile for the verbal GRE, 99th percentile ChatGPT 4, which again came out about 9 months later. So we've gotten with some of these tests in the mid 80s to 90s. When ChatGPT 5 comes out, it's going to probably be close to 99. Means it's really going to be able to compete with humans. The big fear, and I think the thing that is going to be fascinating to see, is when ChatGPT and tools like this become what's called autonomous agents. And what that means is that you can allow them to take over your computer. So you can say, I want you to do all these things, and it'll just do everything on your actual device. The technology here hasn't been launched yet. That's going to create a just sea change. And again, I'm not talking about 20 years from now. I'm not even talking about 20 months from now. We could be talking about 20 days from now or 20 weeks, but that's how close we are at that actually happening. So people aren't ready for this rate of change because, again, it's happening faster than anything we've seen in history. So how is ChatGPT being used today? Well, there's really 5 or 6 main areas that sort of are the table stakes for the use of these tools. Idea generation. It is a great way to come up with ideas for almost anything. So to give you an example, we hosted a barbecue over the summer, and my wife was like, well, I don't know what to buy because there's 15 people coming. People are allergic to this, allergic to this. I want to do a Mexican food theme. What do I do? She typed it all in, and it gave her a shopping list, exactly what to buy based upon the people coming, and recipes to cook every single thing there, right? That's an example of an idea for a person. Imagine if you had to figure that all out on your own. Exactly, 16 ounces of this, 12 ounces of this, exactly that. Fascinating, and everyone loved it, right? So that, for idea generation, there's so many ways to just make people's lives easier for the easiest things. What should I wear to this? How do I phrase this? Little things, I use it for literally everything. Every decision that I'm not unsure of, and most of the time it gives me at least something in the direction that makes that decision a little bit easier. Content creation we're gonna get into, research and analysis. So I run a market research software company, and we basically have a panel of consumers, and we're asking them everything from what type of packaging of a new laundry detergent would you buy more to what did you watch on TV last night, right? And we have a lot of expensive research analysts that are pouring through the data and pulling things out, which this technology can now do more accurately and way faster and way less expensive. So research and analysis is something that this tool is built for. And the more you train it to do it, the better it gets. Coding and development, this can code for you if you need to code, but most people don't. Translation is mind-blowing. I run a podcast called The Speed of Culture. I interview marketing leaders. I was with the head of Delta's marketing, CMO, yesterday, and we can now make that podcast in any language instantly, and the dub over my voice is seamless. It's even better than the video I showed you at the onset. So it turns us from a US-based podcast to a global podcast instantly with basically minimal additional costs. And then the conversational AI, the chatbots, which to me is by far the best way to use this, because essentially you're communicating with technology like you're communicating with a human. One of the big reasons why these big virtual reality devices aren't taking off is they require humans to have a big change in behavior. Like humans don't like putting big things on their head. It's just not how they're used to interacting, right? But the great thing about AI is it doesn't require any change in human behavior because you're texting your technology just like you text your best friend. There's really no change. So that's why I think there's such a low barrier of adoption. Again, that's why I don't understand why it really is just veering towards younger people. It makes no sense to me that that is actually still the case. So AI as a creative service is fascinating. And if last year, 2023, was the year of write me a blog post, write me an email to Walmart on why I deserve a refund. By the way, great use case. If you want to get a refund from an airline, from a company, let it write the letter for you. It's unreal. It works every single time. Like, just don't even do it. Just have it write it. And then you could have it say, write me a follow-up email. And then you could ask it to do both. And then on the 3 days later, you just send the follow-up email and it works instantly. So last year was kind of output text for me. This year, and it just was proven even yesterday with an announcement, it's output video for me. And this is something that's live right now. It's called Pika. I'm going to show you a video of it, which is called text to video, which is make me this, and I'll show you what it outputs. So it's fascinating. If I would have told you 5 years ago this tool would exist, you would have said it was crazy, right? And it's here right now. And when I watch a video like this, I think what it makes me think in terms of like the future is the world is going to be the people who have the ideas, the people who know how to harness tools like this. It's no longer about who can design these videos, who can do the graphic art and the animation and the production of something like this. It's whatever your idea is, you can tell it to do, and the possibilities literally are only limited by your ability to dream. And that changes our world in a big, big way in almost every industry, because we went through a period starting with the Industrial Revolution when it was like, you know, the Rockefellers was about who could build the factories, right? Like who could manufacture and actually build stuff, who can operationalize. And you know, and then it kind of shifted over time to what's called the information economy or information workers. But those information workers were largely just taking information one place, representing it, and pushing it somewhere else, right? But now, in terms of who's going to win moving forward, you could start a company that has the power of 1,000 people by yourself and have the production and output capacity of what used to take 1,000 people, and all you need is the ideas and understand how to harness it for you. And that is world changing. And I think what's going to come out of this at the beginning is a lot of is greater wealth disparity around the world, where you're just going to find a very select few people that are going, just like how Jeff Bezos did with e-commerce, right? This is, I think, 10x that disparity, where you're going to have people that are going to come up with these applications in the medical field to start to displace doctors, right? Or in the accounting field to displace accountants or lawyers, and say, and it's going to get 99% of the way there, and it won't fit for every use case, right? But it'll fit for many. I mean, look at Instagram. 99% of the world's pictures are now taken on a phone, and the only time you really ever need a real photographer is for a wedding or a big corporate event or something like this. But every other occasion, the phone is more than good enough. And I think you're going to start to see that in almost every industry. So we need to teach the youth to understand how to embrace this, to be a creator, not to make your term paper for you, right? Because you're not creating anything by doing that. So that's where I think they don't really understand. Sure, you could turn in a term paper, you'll probably get caught, we'll get into that, but ultimately that's not gonna help you. But if you can learn how to harness and corral this, and so it really is a paradox, because I have a 16 and an 18-year-old, or my 18-year-old just started in college at Columbia in September, and I'm really pushing them to embrace this in ways that can better them for the future world in 2026, 2027. But at the same time, don't lose what it means to be a good student and to learn and to have critical thinking at the same time. And that is ultimately, that's a fine line that you all have to navigate that I'm not envious of, but that's the world where we're at right now. So chatbots is a fascinating thing. And what a chatbot is basically something that you can connect and text to online. And as I mentioned earlier, these are based on generative AI. So I created for myself the Matt Britton Health Bot, right? And this is the application of it. It's completely private. The information is only to me, because when you create something called a custom GPT, you create your own chatbot. And you can say, I don't want this feeding your model, which means it's just mine, right? It's my data. And what I took is every X-ray, every MRI, every blood test, even my Apple Health information from my watch, my Wi-Fi scale information over time, all that, and I fed it into the Matt Britton Health Bot. And I asked it, what are the 5 most important doctor's appointments I should make this year? And based upon the follow-ups, it told me. If I were to die in 15 years, what would it likely be from? Should I eat this, right? It's crazy. Now, it talks to me, and it doesn't worry about hurting my feelings, which is kind of what you want as a patient, right? And I now use it for everything. Like I was last time I was at a physical, I said, prepare for me a 1-page dossier I can give to my doctor about everything that happened, and I printed it up and I gave it to him. It's incredible. It costs nothing. $20 a month, I think, is what OpenAI is, and I have the health bot. Next thing I've created is a Matt Britton content bot. So I uploaded my book I wrote, every blog post I ever wrote, samples of my writing, and it knows all about my career, my bio, et cetera, and I'll say, give me 10 pieces of content to write in the next month. the headlines, and then I'll write the content, or even if I write, I said, shape this for LinkedIn, make sure it has the right hashtags, et cetera, and tell me what to do. Now I'm feeding it more and more, and I'm like, I'm a CEO of a company. What do I do today? How do I spend my time? And I'm starting to, now, I don't need to follow every single thing it says, right? I'm not a robot, but it is such a empowerment on my life in terms of just helping me see blind spots, because one of our powers and our flaws is that we're emotional beings. And this is the ultimate rational being, right? So it's gonna tell you things that maybe you don't wanna hear, or you actually want to avoid, or maybe for some reason you're pushing it off, and it's saying you should do this. And if I listen to it, if I asked it every single day, what should I eat for breakfast, lunch, and dinner, and I just followed it, I would be 100 times healthier 15 years from now. Right? So, because it's going to tell me exactly what trillions of information sources, the best nutritionists in the world, everyone on a combined basis thinks that you should eat, or how you should exercise, or what you should do. So these custom GPTs are being used in a lot of different ways. One way we're putting it to work for our company is, our company uses this tool called Gong, right? What it does is we have a whole sales team, and every time they talk to a customer, it gets recorded. And it says this call is being recorded for customer service purposes. And I have the transcripts now for the last 3 years of every call that has taken place between every customer. So I exported all those transcripts, and I uploaded it into the Suzy Customer Service GPT. And I start to ask it questions. What are customers most dissatisfied from? What should I build in my product? What do customers say before they cancel a subscription with my company? Because I also uploaded customer revenue by month. So it could correlate and say, they start to mention these kind of words or these kind of phrases, and then they canceled. So you need to watch out for this. Which salespeople are the best? Why? What words they use? And I now have the power of every conversation that has happened to do that. And that is just incredible, because otherwise I'd be relying on hearsay, somebody's manager saying this or something else. I don't have to rely on any of that. I just let the data kind of do the work. And that's another example of just a proprietary data feed that can make my company smarter based upon what's out there. So I'm spending most of my time now creating these custom GPTs. Custom GPTs just came out 2 months ago, maybe 1 month ago. And you can see companies like Kayak are coming out with like a travel one where you could be like, I want to travel somewhere this weekend where it's warm and not raining, that is within 300 miles of here, and it'll tell you. So a lot of companies are starting to do this as well, and pretty soon it's going to be like, okay, great, book this. Like, we're not far away from just you being able to buy stuff over this. And that's where on the onset when I talk about voice combined with this, you will be able to talk in your phone and have the queries I just talked about, and it'll just tell you back instantly, because the voice technology is so much better because of AI as well. So I would definitely check out custom GPT. How do you do it? Go on YouTube. How do I build a custom GPT? I can tell you it is so easy. It's literally, it's so intuitive, and you could upload your course syllabus and your materials and everything and actually have it frame classroom topics and things like that. Like, one thing I know that is probably a challenge is like maybe things happen in the outside world, you want to integrate it, but you don't have time because it's happening so quickly. You could have it know the topics or general things you're talking about, and then say, based upon the headlines in the economy in the last week, craft today's agenda, classroom agenda, based upon that. And it'll extract what it knows about your coursework, what happened with the headlines, and you are doing something that's like of the moment of today. And you could do it that morning. So there's just a lot of things you can do in that area, and it's all based upon these custom GPTs, which again are private. I think a misconception a lot of people still have is that anything you put in AI, everyone's gonna be able to see. But now there is this new functionality where you can actually create your own private instance of a chatbot, and it's really fascinating. So professional services, I think, is an area that's gonna get dramatically disrupted by AI in a way that I don't think a lot of people understand. I am already using AI to do my speaking contracts for my speaking engagements and to review them. I wouldn't use it if I was buying a house or selling a company or doing something yet, but it's starting to creep in, because this basically just brings together, if you want to create a certain type of agreement, it's going to bring together all the agreements that I've ever written that can be logged on the web and combine it into the way an agreement is written. And the amount of time and cost this saves is dramatic. What do you do if you're a lawyer, right? What do you actually do about this? That is kind of the issue because there's a lot of work that's being done. And just like going back to the photography example, there's a lot of people who are still doing really well as a photographer, but it's like, it's a power law, right? There's people at the way top that are great, and then there's not really much room for everyday photographers. The same is going to be the case here. There will be lawyers that are going to be doing multi-million-dollar deals, but the everyday, small claims lawyer that needs to basically write stuff, I don't know if that's really going to be the case 3 or 4 years from now. Accounting, even more so, right? Because accounting just is math, and it follows whatever the tax laws are. And who's going to be better at understanding the tax laws and the nuances of the IRS massive tax laws in a specific state? A person who's limited by their own worldview and brain, or this, that actually does have all the information? And what's more efficient for a consumer? What's cheaper for a consumer? So accounting is another area where I just think I don't see a world where there's going to be nearly as many accountants moving forward. The big question we're all probably asking is, what are all these people going to do, right? And I think that there will be new jobs created by AI. I think it's going to be very deflationary for our economy. And these people are going to have to upskill or up-level or do different things. Like, there's not many cashiers at convenience stores anymore, right? There's not many people that are collecting toll booth tolls anymore. There's a lot of technology that has disintermediated many jobs out there. And I think this is going to be that by a big multiple. So text to image is something, so I talked about text to video. Text to image is now widely adopted. There's a tool called DALL-E, and again, this may seem really intimidating, but if you just try DALL-E, all you need to do is open it up and say, I want a picture of a raccoon playing tennis at Wimbledon in the 1990s, and that's what you'll get. So it's that simple. So in order for you to create any image, it's really, again, just limited to your imagination. An Italian town made of pasta, tomatoes, basil, and Parmesan. It's that simple to be able to type these things out, and the quality really is that good. We talk a lot about, the power of data and collecting data. There's amazing tools out there. I actually use one called Fireflies, where every time I do a Zoom call, it just logs in, and it creates a personal recording for me, and then it just summarizes it. And I think for you, when you're teaching classes, having something like this, having just the classes recorded, is so powerful, because what it can do is any question that comes up, anything anybody says, it basically will capture, and then it'll give you a summary at the end, and it'll give you next steps. And you could even have an output, a follow-up note to the students, and allow you to log the questions you're getting over time. All those things. This technology is basically free right now just by recording it, and it's really powerful. Now, you all have to deal with privacy concerns and the university and this and that. Like, I understand all that. I'm being somewhat idealistic because I know it's not as easy as I think it should be always. But tools like this, in terms of capturing that content, make it so easy. For students, the question you have to ask yourselves is, do you want students taking notes? Because if they're taking notes, they're looking down and not up. Or are you okay with them recording the class and outputting the notes on their own? Now, some would say there's a lot of value for them actually writing down the notes. Others would say there's more value for them just being zoomed in and have the notes afterwards. And the reality is they're not going to be taking notes in the workforce because people like me are going to have the tools like I told you about, Gong, that's just going to record everything, and I can analyze it. So, but your ability to kind of capture that primary data just makes you incredibly powerful against the data that feeds the model of whatever it is that you want to do. So this is my friend Ella again, and this is a tool called Synthesia, and that's basically how I was able to develop it, is I just wrote in, say this, I picked the avatar or the person, I picked their accent or their voice, I was able to customize the background, I hit generate, it took me about 5 minutes, I did this morning, and I threw it up there. That's all it took. You could also have this prompter point to a PowerPoint. You could have him actually create a lesson plan. You could even have his avatar be you. That's what actually can happen right now. So it's really fascinating, and it is just as easy as just typing in what you wanted to say, and it creates it for you. And again, I know this technology isn't perfect yet, but it very much is version 1.0 for companies like this. And there's no doubt a year from now it's going to look just like a real human, and it'll be largely indistinguishable. So data is everything. This is a really popular podcast called Huberman. Basically what he did is he took every transcript of thousands of podcasts and he built his own model. So you could ask health information based upon him interviewing thousands of the leading health and nutrition guests in the world. So this is how information now is being built by the content. So in terms of content capturing, we're starting to see a lot of innovation now where people are companies are like peddling like a pin called Humane that basically just follows you, so it captures everything you say. There's a tool called Rewind that captures every click that you do on a computer. Now, we're probably thinking about privacy. Oh my God, this is terrible. Totally get it. It's a trade-off because guess what? We're all sharing pictures of our babies and pictures of our pets and pictures in front of our home and where we're going on vacation and every single thing about our lives, which maybe 10 years ago or 20 years ago, people said that no one would ever do that. So maybe this is just the next step in it, right? But the reality is, I would argue, unlike social media in all instances, here, the more you capture, the smarter it is. Because the smarter any model knows about you and the way you live your life, the more it's gonna be able to help you. So it really is, the more you put in, the more you get out of it. I personally probably wouldn't wear this pin yet. I was actually nervous walking to the restroom before this with these two mics on me. So I don't know like if I'm ready to do that, but maybe. Nutrition, artificial nutritionists, that's another area. The question is everyone going to be honest with the AI nutritionist is the question. And it's so good now that somebody actually took two different artists, The Weeknd and Drake, and actually created a song using AI, and it became a top hit, and they basically had to have legal threats to take it down. And consumers didn't know the difference. They thought it was better. So like in the music and entertainment field, we're gonna see lots of stuff there. So scary stuff, yes. What are we gonna do about it? And the big question is like, what have we just unleashed? Like, where's this gonna take us? What's the downside of it? Do the benefits sort of outweigh the risks of AI in general? Are we all gonna be working for robots one day? I would argue we're gonna be working for the people that know how to use the robots versus working for the robots themselves. But it is scary, and it is a different world out there. The dominoes are already falling. This company, Chegg, their stock dropped more than 40%. They said that ChatGPT is going into business. A lot of you know of Chegg. That's a perfect example. IBM, last year said they're going to replace 8,000 jobs through AI. So, and now what we're seeing, last year Facebook cut 20,000 jobs and profit of 40%. It's like, how do they do that? Well, they have their own AI model. So they're just, like they say the future's already here, it's just not evenly distributed. Well, it is distributed to them. And what they're saying is they can actually be far more efficient. That's why Google, again, profiting tens of billions of dollars, they're cutting staff. A lot of companies are starting to see this, and it's only a matter of time before it just filters all the way down. What's really interesting, though, and I'll get into this, is that unlike other past technological innovations, this disproportionately impacts the white-collar worker versus the blue-collar worker, right? This is not gonna impact the chef. It's not gonna impact the delivery person or construction worker. It'll impact them, but it won't disintermediate them. But really, the white-collar workers are the ones the information age workers that are at the biggest risk. And that was not the case in the past with other technological innovations. So, this is a survey out of 10 workers, 6 will at least have 10% of their work tasks impacted, and 2 will have over 50% of their work tasks impacted, and the other 2 will be sent packing, is sort of the rationale here. And again, with the changes happening, this may even push a little further, although I do think many jobs are AI-proof. So, here's jobs with low exposure, jobs with low wages, jobs that require low formal education, right? Agriculture, mining, like science skills, critical thinking. Again, critical thinking is something that somebody has to tell these AI models what to do, right? So I think, again, your ability to create, critically think, input ideas, that's going to be the winners in this new world. But who's at high exposure? People with high wages, writers, programmers, people that are doing analysis, work that requires college degree or higher. Like, there you go. I didn't make this slide up. It's just here. That's the big thing, right? So when you talk about the value, like I believe in the value of higher education for so many reasons. Ultimately, though, you're going to need to shift as a student the way that you basically extract that experience for you to be propelled in terms of where you're heading. And that's the big thing. So what does it mean for higher education? Because we're going to get into questions. I'm sure we'll have a lot. But in terms of what does it mean for the future of higher education, this is an article from the year 2000. internet at school is changing the work of students and teachers. And you can see this technology changes parent training schools across the country mean the most adept teachers do less lecturing and change classrooms from know-it-all learning coach who guides students to what they need. That never really happened, right? Like, so the internet really didn't change the way that classes are taught. A lot of people thought it would. It really hasn't. I would say it's been additive. And a lot of people thought about the same plagiarism issues when Wikipedia came out, right? And some of that proved to be right. But ultimately, as much as things changed, they did stay the same in terms of the classroom environment. Obviously, one of the big issues is AI chatbots and what it means for plagiarism and what it means for students actually doing the work. And that's ultimately where we almost have to rethink what it means to deliver an assignment as a student. Like, do we want kids delivering term papers anymore if writing is going to be, like, I can tell you, in my team, instead of them writing reports on research output, I'm having them do AI write the report, and they're just, because it's based upon the data we got in the research, and they're just basically molding it, because I'd rather them spend time building customer relationships than writing the reports. So that's the real world application that I'm in. So how much do we want students spending time writing term papers versus learning how to feed models is the question ultimately. And we're not there yet, but that's where we're kind of headed over time, and that's the big question that we all have to ask. So Arizona State University just announced a collaboration with OpenAI, which is the company behind ChatGPT, to license the enterprise version for their students. So just a year ago, we were seeing schools saying it's banned, and now we're seeing a little bit of cracks in the armor where they're not only saying it's not banned, this was just announced in January, last month, but they're saying, okay, we're gonna actually teach you. And I think it's a great thing, I really do. I think ultimately it's gonna be a part of our world, and the longer you push it off, I think it comes at the disadvantage of the educators and the students. And I know, there's a lot of nuance there. 56% of college students have used AI or on assignments and exams, even though over half said they know that the use of these tools counts as cheating or plagiarism. They're using to your example, and there are a lot of tools out there like Turnitin, which is detecting AI. And that's the thing about a lot of these big concerns about AI. The AI doomsayers is the same AI that could create all this malfeasance and bad actions is the same AI that could stop it. So I think a lot of people forget about that, but I think it's going to be far more in control. I do worry about the election because I just think it's so new and the systems aren't really in place to detect it. And most importantly, consumers aren't educated. So they're going to see something and ultimately think, oh, that's that guy talking, saying that it must be real. And I think we're still at the place where people don't have the skepticism yet because AI is so new. And that's where I definitely worry about. It's going to give AI a really bad rap. And a lot of people are going to want to shut it down. And it's not going to be shut down, but that's my prediction of what's going to happen this year. I think it's going to be a year of AI catastrophe. Not to be a doomsayer, but there's going to be some bad shit that happens with AI this year. Let's just put it out there. It's going to be bad. But in the end, I think it's going to be okay. And you got to stick with it, ultimately. So how can it be used? Let's get the practical takeaways before we go to questions. Personalized learning is one. So if there's a world where you are capturing everything that's said in classes, then you could actually understand the questions that each individual student is asking and understand what should their learning plan be. What should their interpretation of what you're trying to teach on them look like, and even have their assignments be customized to their interests or what they care about. So from a world where you're like, this is the assignment, the same assignment for everybody, where one person might be in the geology, and one person might be in the sports, and one person might be in the media, they can actually take their interest and apply it to what you're trying to teach them in a personalized learning format by you capturing that information over AI. So I think it's a really powerful thing, and the tools are very much here. I know companies like Pearson are doing a lot to implement AI into their tools as well, which is great to see in terms of pushing the AI narrative onto educators so we can kind of move forward. AI-based tutoring, I think, is a real thing because, that health bot I told you is like my health tutor. Like, I think students should have their own tutors that can actually help them and understand what they're trying to learn and what they're actually trying to accomplish, and basically give them the information they need to help them spend their time. I believe the best AI application we're all gonna have one day, very soon, is basically, and it's all gonna be depending upon, again, what you're willing to share, but theoretically, if Joe Smith shared his financial information, he shared his health information, he shared all of his relationships, like who his best friends were, his family, and basically when the last time he emailed or texted these people, his diet, everything. You could look every day and it could say, if you want to optimize your life, you need to be doing these 4 things today. You have to call your mother-in-law who you haven't talked to in a while. Don't go to Burger King. Instead of watching that, and we were going to listen, probably not, but maybe 1 or 2 things. You should schedule these 3 meetings. You haven't done this in a while, right? You haven't changed your oil in your car, whatever it may be. I think that's where we're going to be heading, and the technology could do it today. So I think having these AI assistants to help you, the question is, when do we become singularity, where like the technology is you and it's in your brain and you're just a robot? Like that's far away, hopefully, but this is like a step of where we're going. Smart classrooms. So I talked earlier about like headlines and things that come up in the real world and how do you instantly integrate it into your agenda and your curriculum, et cetera. I do believe that smart classrooms could take outside stimuli, things that you're learning from students, and then it changes what's on the board. It changes actually what you talk about based upon what's happening. So it allows you to be a little bit more dynamic in terms of connecting with students based on what's happening in the world and what's happening in the classroom, and things can change over time. And I think you're gonna see this come on board very quickly. So those are the main things that I have, as I mentioned. I'll have this up. If you go to mattbritton.com/Pearson, email address, I will give you a list of 50 AI tools that I really think you should check out, and then you'll get a copy of the presentation as well. And I'll make sure I also send it to the great folks at Pearson to get out to you guys. So I'd love to open it up for questions.